Hello and welcome to Games Embassy with the Ambassadors of Gaming. I'm one of your two hosts, Ambassador Chris.
And I am Ambassador Michael.
This is our brand new show, replacing Phone a Friend News. We're going to be trying things a little differently here, but it should relatively be very similar to everything you know and love. I'm going to go ahead and start out with 5 news updates. So Silent Hills PT lives once more. The game has been entirely remade using Unreal Engine and is now listed as Unreal PT. Moving over to Unreal isn't the only new thing though. This version has VR capabilities and is free on itch.io, created by Radius Gordello.
The second item on our list is the Warner Brothers and Bethesda lawsuit over their mobile game has ended. WB was being sued by Bethesda for their mobile Westworld game. Bethesda claimed that the Westworld game, quote, has the same or highly similar game design, art style, animations, features, and other gameplay elements, end quote, as Fallout Shelter. This was due to a bug being discovered in the Westworld game that was identical to a bug in Fallout Shelter. However, a notice was filed in a federal court on December 12th of 2018, stating that Bethesda and Warner Brothers came to an amicable agreement and settled the lawsuit without court intervention. It is important to note, however, that the company that helped co-develop both games was another studio, Behavior Interactive.
Third update we've got here is a sad one. Bowsette is non-canon, according to Nintendo. Sad days. Rip. Nintendo recently updated the information on their site for the upcoming game New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. The update resolves specifically around the Super Crown item with, quote, sorry Luigi, only Toadette can use this item, thus killing all potential gender swap creatures spawning from the initial reveal trailer.
The fourth item we have here on our list is why Kingdom Hearts 3 changed to Unreal Engine and had so many delays. I might butcher this, so save me if I do.
Tetsuya Nomura is his name.
Yeah, there you go. You saved me, thanks. Recently spoke with Edge Magazine and discussed some of the complexities that went on while developing Kingdom Hearts 3. He said, quote, we had our own company reasons, essentially. It wasn't something that we had anything to do with. It was decided higher up. It was a whole year that we had to kind of rewind and restart. As a dev tool, Unreal Engine 4 is kind of an all-in-one. It's got all of the stuff that is needed in it. It's used around the world. And we also got really great support from Epic Games. They were very helpful through the entire process. It would have been a different story if the team making Luminous had been members of the Kingdom Hearts team, but they were a different team, so that did make things a bit more difficult, end quote.
Going into our fifth and final update, Pokemon Go is actually still killing it, despite kind of being quiet since the release of Gen 4, making an estimated $795 million in revenue in 2018. This information we've gathered by SensorTower.com and reported by comicbook.com thanks to Liana or Lily Rupert. Pokemon Go's revenue includes almost $2.2 million per day. United States players made up about 262 million of that total revenue. Japanese players made up about 239 million. The total since the game's initial release amounts to be an estimated 2.2 billion total. Good stuff. We are going to go ahead and move on to news now. We're going to have Mike leading the charge on that. Go ahead and take it away, Mike.
So we got the most interesting announcement within the last couple of weeks. Slightly Mad Studio announces and shows off first images of the Madbox, their new console. Slightly Mad Studios, the developer behind Project Cars and Need for Speed Shift, has recently announced their new console, a competitor to the supposed PS5 and next generation Xbox. Ian Bell, the CEO, spoke with Variety stating, quote, it will support most major VR headsets and those upcoming, and the specs will be equivalent to a very fast PC 2 years from now. He said the components of the Madbox haven't been settled on, but the pricing will be, quote, competitive. The last interesting piece of information he dropped was the console won't have any exclusives because it is, quote, exclusionary. So there's a lot in those few sentences.
I'm all for it. I'm all for another competitor in the console scene. It kind of keeps things fresh because keep in mind, PlayStation, for example, with their whole not being able to change your name thing, Xbox has had this thing able to be done since the 360 was released, since the online for 360 was released. And the only reason that they feel any need to do that is so that they can compete with another console. If they start doing nothing while another console is catering to all the needs of their demographic, people are all going to go over to that console. Competition keeps the best experience you can get coming to you. Man, that was a really choppy sentence. I'm really sorry, everyone.
You remember when Atari was like, we're going to make a new console? We're like, that's interesting. What do you have? And they're like, it's basically just a Steam Link, but it says Atari on it. This, we don't know if that's going to be the case. We don't know if it's going to have its own OS. We're assuming it's not going to have its own network. So I don't know if it's going to be a Steam Link kind of idea where it's like, oh, it's basically just a PC you load games on, or if it's going to be like PlayStation and Xbox where it's this actual hardware that has its own software and it has its own ecosystem. But I think it's also kind of silly to not have exclusives. We saw this year that some of the best-selling games, last year, 2018, some of the best-selling games that year were exclusives for PlayStation. I just don't necessarily agree that that's something that is exclusionary. I think it's a selling point for some people, actually.
Most definitely. Definitely from a hardware standpoint, I'm almost a little concerned considering these people made games. Like, you can't just, it's very different to just jump into a console, but they seem pretty optimistic. You know, it's pretty ballsy to come out quite a few years early and say, we're gonna create a console that's gonna knock your socks off.
Don't get me wrong. You saw the images for it, correct?
Yes.
It looks cool, but it looks just like a PC tower.
That's still a prototype, though.
That's fair. But they also, in the image, blurred out a lot of the components because they were like, well, I just read here the components aren't settled on. I don't know how to feel about this because it's like, it's going to have keyboard support and it's supposedly going to have controller support. So I don't know, like, is this saying a Steam Link or is it a console? Because when we think of console, we think it's very exclusive. I don't think Oculus works on Xbox, right? It works on PC, but it doesn't work on Xbox. For example, the PSVR doesn't work on anywhere but PlayStation, I guess is my point. So they have an ecosystem, whereas this doesn't sound like it, which means I have a hard time understanding why I would want to buy this over a PC or an Xbox or a PlayStation.
I'm sure that they will give us reasons to, because they're thinking of that too. Aside from, hey, it's a flashy new console, there has to be a reason for someone to purchase this over brands that they already know and have become accustomed to, like the PlayStation or the Xbox or even a Nintendo Switch, to be honest.
Right. And the Switch is the outlier because there's usually a reason people want to buy it for portability. But anyways,
any single player game.
I won't play Doom on Switch.
I will get on the Switch. I still haven't played Doom.
I've tried to play shooters on those stupid Joy-Cons. It feels so bad. It just feels so bad. I think you hit the nail on the head. Number 2, WB Games pulls Lego Lord of the Rings and Lego The Hobbit from digital stores. Redditor Super Monkey discovered that the 2 Lego games had disappeared from the Steam store, which led to many searching on PlayStation and Xbox, finding them there to be gone as well. I did my own research and found that as of last night at 12:03 a.m. on the 6th of January, they were still not available in the PlayStation Store. They were nowhere to be found. A WB representative told PC Gamer in a statement, quote, Lego Lord of the Rings and Lego The Hobbit will no longer be available for sale in digital stores. Yes. The games will remain in players' libraries if they already own them, end quote. So they didn't give a specific reason as to why the games were pulled. There is speculation though that maybe they've just run out of time with the licenses for those franchise under Lego. And I mean, it's possible that it could be music as well, because Lord of the Rings has a very specific soundtrack and kind of tone that you have to nail. So if you don't use the music from the movies, I assume, it's going to feel weird. And that could be one of the reasons they pulled them, as that seems to be the reason for a lot. With a few exceptions of like Activision's Marvel games. Those all got pulled because Activision doesn't have a license for Marvel games anymore. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how successful Lego Lord of the Rings or Lego The Hobbit were. I don't know why they would pull it from the store, but music, I'm going to have to agree. I think that might be the most likely candidate. Lord of the Rings has very iconic music. Same thing with any huge series like Star Wars or Star Trek, anything along those lines. And if those music licenses, if they lose those or if they expire, then yeah, they can't sell something with it in it anymore.
I was taking a look here to see if maybe WB had any licenses owning like the movies or the books or anything like that, or even comics. It doesn't look like they have the license to any of that. So it's probably just that the licenses ended with Lord of the Rings or the music has ended. Because WB owns tons of things, so I never know with them what they do and don't own. So that seems to be the case. Unfortunately, we don't know if they'll ever be back. However, if you want them to physically, I'm sure you could find them physically somewhere.
Yeah, if you really wanted to, I'm sure you could find them used at if they did come out with physical copies.
Yeah, they usually do. Lego games usually get a physical release. I don't know how well they sell, but they usually get a physical release. Number 3. Oh boy, here comes the spoilers. Smash Ultimate leaks have appeared. It is one of...
Dude, you said that like a new challenger appears.
That was the point.
The thing that comes up, Smash Ultimate leaks have appeared? Like, new challenger approaching?
That was exactly what I was hoping for.
Well, then you did a good job, because that's exactly how I heard it.
I nailed it. Go me. So the leaks come from someone with some legitimacy. They posted a leak before and have been proven credible elsewhere. Long story short, they mentioned Persona 5R before anyone else had leaked it, and then Atlas officially confirmed its existence recently. However, there's no announcement of when that will be released, what it is, blah, blah, blah. Just that this person had leaked it ahead of time and before everybody else. So now to the juicy part. This user on 5channel, I can't confirm, but it kind of sounds like a Japanese 4chan. Don't know if it's the same company, don't know if it's the same people. It just sounds that way. Anyway, so there's 4 more characters that we know for sure are coming. This is the supposed leak. Edric, the protagonist of Dragon Quest III, which would line up with some other rumors we've heard so far. That's been one people have talked about. Ryu Hayabusa, the protagonist of the Ninja Gaiden series. It's claimed to promote the 30-year anniversary with the announcement of a remaster and or new game. Though, however, it will be the 31st anniversary in 2019 of Ninja Gaiden in Japan, but it would be the 30th in America. And the reason I make that distinction is because Smash is Japanese and made by a Japanese game developer. Usually, the relevance to the Japanese audience, is more important than the American audience, but that might not be the case here. The third one being Steve, the default Minecraft character, which people have speculated for a very long time. The leaker said that it is to be released as DLC as the DLC for Smash Bros. To promote Minecraft DLC, and that would be revealed at E3, and that his skins would be Master Chief and Alex. The fourth one here is the most interesting, I think, and the one that doesn't fit. The Doom Marine, the Doom guy, the protagonist of the Doom series. And that it'll be used to be a promo for Doom Eternal, which we believe to be coming out in 2019. And he'll also have a Doom 64 palette swap. So how do you feel about this smorgasbord of potential leaks?
I have heard about the Persona 5 one, and I have heard about Erdrick. I have heard about those, and I think those are very possible. The only one that really doesn't sit well with me is Doom.
Yeah, his aesthetic.
And Minecraft, okay. Doom, well, it's not even his aesthetic. Bayonetta 2 was released on the Wii U as a way for Nintendo to show, hey, we're trying to bring content to our console that isn't just for kids. Mm-hmm. And it did really well. And Bayonetta is a character in Smash right now with all of her lewd poses and her final smash, which pulls out a demon out of her demon weave. Or Wicked Weave, I'm sorry, out of her Wicked Weave. And it pretty much chops you up. It's pretty violent. It's nothing against the violence. It's just kind of out of left field.
No offense to Bethesda, but they don't have a particularly tight relationship that we've seen with Nintendo. And this would be kind of a curveball and kind of weird because I don't know if you're not in the online forums and stuff like that, but a lot of what I've seen is that a lot of people would have preferred if Doom Guy was in Mortal Kombat, which would make way more sense. It just, in a lot of people's opinion, just the aesthetic of Mortal Kombat and how graphic and gory it can be lines up with how graphic and gory Doom Guy is. So it makes more sense. But here's the thing, I don't disagree that it's possible. I never would have guessed Persona 5 as being one of the DLC characters. Like, never in a million years. Because Persona's not even on Switch. I don't think there's any Persona games on Switch at the moment. So, like, why? Why would it be there? So, I mean, it's definitely possible. I'm just kind of like, I would rather see him in Mortal Kombat. But I think Steve is the one that, if it happens, it's really going to be like Nintendo and Microsoft have really hit this, like, olive branch moment. You know what I mean? Because we already saw it with Minecraft earlier in the year, or early last year with crossplay, yeah. So where they were, taking jabs. Yeah, where they were taking jabs at Sony, remember?
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I did not even think of that with that ad they came out with, yeah, for crossplay. That finally got Sony to budge. Took forever, but they finally started to budge. I could totally see Steve making it into Minecraft. What would his final Smash be? Or Steve making it into Smash. What would his final Smash be?
Maybe it'd be the Ender Dragon. I don't know. That'd be my guess. I'm not really sure. I haven't played Minecraft in so long, I don't know anything about the lore of Minecraft. So I have no idea. Maybe he just picks his enemy away.
He could throw TNT.
No idea, honestly. But I think it'd be interesting for them to put Master Chief and Alex skins on there as well. So it's like they're going to put a couple of mascots on the Minecraft one. I think that could be really interesting.
Microsoft's going to fit all of the advertisements they can into this character.
Right. We're gonna really plaster it on. So I think that's all we have on that one. So I'm going to move on to number 4 here, which is some legality. So don't space out. It is important. And it is interesting. Video game. This is like the worst time for you to actually have to yawn. That's what you get. Anyways, so the video game communications are now subject to the U.S. accessibility law. Back in 2010, President Obama signed the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, the CVAA, into law. And what it did is it updated pre-existing disability laws and regulations to include 21st century technologies in mind, allowing disabled people better access to modern communications like voice chat, text chat, and video chat. So Skype, party chat, messaging, things like that. And Right. So the reason all of this is important is that there were a lot of reasons why they weren't compliant. They were given waivers, essentially, by the president at the time, and I think it's the FCC. So essentially what it was is they were like, hey, look, games are different than TV shows and movies. It takes months, years to make these. Give us some time to adjust, adapt, evolve, blah, blah, blah. And what happened is that those expired on the 31st of last year. So now every game that comes out has to be compliant. However, they do acknowledge that games are different than TVs and movies, and they're produced in different ways. So there is some leeway where people could get through without having to deal with fines and this and that. But they're taking it kind of seriously. However, I think it's important to get the perspective of somebody this actually affects. So I'm going to read a quote here. So speaking of variety, AbleGamers, if you don't know, a nonprofit group focused on creating greater accessibility for people in video games. The founder, Mark Bartlett, shared his and his organization's thought on the law. Quote, the CVAA is very narrowly focused on communication. AbleGamers has been, from the start, suspect as to why video games would be defined as communication devices. While the FCC disagreed with us and the rest of the games industry, the focus of the CVAA is still very narrow. It only covers the part of the game where gamers can communicate with gamers. Some developers have come to us with concerns that CVAA requires all games to be universally acceptable by law. That's just not true. That said, the industry has embraced a greater accessibility movement that we here at AbleGamers has spearheaded, and we could not be happier. Companies are going above and beyond what the CVAA requires, not because they have to, but because video games are a greater part of the entertainment we reach for. With 1 in 5 people in the US having a disability, not including some accessibility, means you may be leaving a lot of fans on the sidelines, end quote. So, just one last piece of information, then we'll get into the opinions of it. Games given substantial updates also must comply. So even if they're not released after the 31st, if they're giving significant updates like Destiny 2 or Fortnite, for example, they have to be compliant if they continue to operate in the way that they do. So live services, in quotes, have to be accessible now. So given all of that information,
it's a lot of big legal words. That's my opinion.
The fanciness is basically just, okay, you have to make it accessible for people with disabilities to be able to communicate with one another in game, which is fine. But one of the biggest things we see in games, for example, is color blindness is a huge issue for a lot of people. Because if you don't know about color blindness, it's a disability that doesn't affect most people in significant ways. However, in video games, it can be significant because there's people with blue-green color blindness, red-green color blindness, monochrome color blindness, all sorts of color blindness. Anyways, my point is that certain people cannot play games because of their color blindness. I'm just using that one as an example because it's the one I'm most familiar with. However, there are people who, might not have full use of one of their arms or, something like that, or they can't use certain fingers because of their disability. And Microsoft's made great strides putting out new controllers and things.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say Microsoft has come out with their awesome line of like those tablet pad controllers, specifically designed for people whose joints in their fingers are fused or in elbows or arms.
Right. And that thing's really sweet. And I'm really glad they took the time to do that. And I'm glad that they cared enough to do that. And I think that they made that investment because it's something that'll go into the future, because as we feel the Xbox is just going to continue as the Xbox One. So it'll be something that you can use continuously. So it's not something you have to buy when the new Xbox comes out. The reason that's important is because that thing is expensive. I think it's like $110, right? I'm not sure. I'm going to look it up here. So give me 1 second. I'm going to edit this bridge.
I haven't looked at the price of that component. Well, while you're looking that up, one of the comments that I feel is very necessary is the world is very different than it was 20 years ago, even different than it was 10 years ago. Everything's online. Everything aside, they do say in here, games are different, and they acknowledge that. Games are different. But just in general, the world is different. And if some people don't have access to common technologies that are considered the norm and even necessities, that's a problem.
I would agree with that. It's also a huge subsection of the market that you're not tailoring to, which is why I think Microsoft hit it and PlayStation hasn't come up with anything yet. Real quick, I found the controller. It's $100. Well, the people running the show at PlayStation, I don't think always think of everything. Whereas I think Microsoft, because it's a larger company that has more things to do, thinks in different ways. And Sony is also Japanese based, so there's probably not as many. I'm not going to make a statement. I would assume that there are less disabled people in Japan than there are in America. Just
what?
The population
what makes
difference.
You say that?
That's all.
Oh, well, the same ratio. Right. There might be the same
but
ratio.
I mean, in terms of total
disabled
number.
To non-disabled.
Right. I believe there would be less, which, as sad as it may seem, may mean that the company doesn't want to target that market. And I don't like that. That's a sad thing to say. I'm not saying that that's what Sony does. They sit and they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But thinking ahead to this and creating things that are for disabled people to make their lives easier, I thought that was really impressive. I think it was in Destiny 1 when they added colorblind options. I remember speaking about it with a couple of people. I'm like, that's really cool. For those who don't know, my biological father's colorblind. So seeing, him deal with it, I can understand maybe people who are growing up now who are colorblind that don't they're a struggle with certain things because they can't pick out certain colors or they don't see certain colors. And so that can make a huge difference. So I think we're in a good spot though with the accessibility. I think we're finally to a point where we're starting to accommodate people who need the accessibility to be able to do those things. You know what I mean? To be able to enjoy themselves. That's really all it is, just to be able to enjoy themselves.
Yeah, a lot of people, some people think of games as creature comforts, but a lot of people play games. I just found out the other day that my astrophysicist professor who took me to DC plays Super Mario Maker. And I didn't know that. I thought that was kind of cool. And she's like in her 40s.
Have you discussed the different physics of Mario? Of each Mario.
The different physics of Mario Maker? No, that wasn't our that was
how each one is different. Anyways, I'm glad that this industry is moving in a way towards that. That's one of the things that I find the most admirable is they're making strides very quickly to accommodate those people. And we have people like AbleGamers, groups like them, that are pushing for that in ways that are not mean-spirited. They're just like, hey, we exist. Hey, we want to buy products. We want to be a part of this group, and they just are letting their voices be heard. And I think that's wonderful. So, but I think that covers, right, which is not generally what we talk about on this show. Generally, we talk about how people are sending death threats and being mean. Yeah, but we're trying to, I want to highlight the good as much as I do the bad. And not like the bad, like, oh, see, everybody sucks. But like whenever you see anything related to gamers in mainstream media, it's always bad. It's always the death threats, the harassment. And it's like, come on, guys. I know it's not everybody. I know it's the small subsection of the same people who were doing it 5-10 years ago. But still, like, come on, really? So I'm glad that we're making strides in ways that people can talk about our group of people in ways other than we're just this toxic group of people who just hate everyone. So, but, people still think all gamers are trolls, like literal trolls. Like, you know what I mean? They sit on their couch and don't do anything all day. And so being able to discuss these kind of things, I think brings it into a better light. But I think I've said all I feel on this.
Kathryn, the cult puzzle platformer that has been getting closer and closer to a PC release with multiple teases on the Bayonetta Steam page and with the ESRB rating for PC. The enhanced full body edition of the game comes to PS4 in Japan on February 14th with a rester release. With a Western release, quote, soon to follow, end quote.
I'm excited for that. Because I know, did you play Kathryn?
I did not.
Okay. Well, it's a puzzle platformer. It's kind of cool. The premise was kind of cool. It was one of those things where it was like, gamers really liked it, but then like PewDiePie picked it up and then everybody knew about it.
Who's PewDiePie?
Who is PewDiePie? Who is this guy named PewDiePie? I've never heard of him.
Who's that human?
Anyways, that's everything we have for now. We restructured everything. I think it gave us a better flow. The show's shorter, but I think better. So we're going to
streamlined.
Keep it this way for now and make adjustments and blah, blah, blah. And, if you guys have any suggestions, comments, concerns, you can always let us know. But this is kind of the basic structure we want to go with going through the new year. We didn't address the changes, so I'm doing it here at the end. Because I figure if you're still with us, you care the most. So, yeah, we're making a bunch of changes. So
we're streamlining everything. We're still giving our opinions. I guess you could say we're better preparing ourselves so we don't have as much run on, as much off the cuff.
Yeah, it's essentially just making the show more prepared, not in like, oh, we're not going to have live reactions to things, but just it sounds better. Like we don't want to be stumbling over our words and like, oh, this and that. And we did that for a long time in the video format because of the way it was. But now that we're on audio, just as of right now, we're still figuring out things. This is the way to do it. It just sounds better. At least I think so. I've been getting feedback from certain people, specifically Case, that it's done better. It sounds better. And so we're trying to keep it concise because I get it. People don't want to be here all day. But also we want it to be entertaining. And I think the way we've done it is a lot better. So we hope to see you next week and join us on the second episode of Games Epicy. I'm actually going to number these episodes now because I want to do celebratory things. So going forward, that's the new layout of the show. We hope you like it. If you don't like it, I guess let me know.
Then we hate you.
So we don't like you.
You suck.
I worked really hard on this.
Try and check us out at least once a week. That's how often we try and do this. I'm Ambassador Chris.
And I'm Ambassador Michael.
And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, friends.
We're gone.